Welcome to a journey into the quiet heart of Japanese garden design. Here, the Ma philosophy invites us to see beauty not in what is added, but in what is left untouched. In minimalist landscaping, space is a living element. As we walk, you'll notice that negative space in garden design is not emptiness, it is a canvas for peace, a breath between nature's whispers. Imagine stepping into a courtyard where the gravel is untouched and wide, open patches. This is the Ma philosophy at work, where negative space in garden composition allows the eye to rest. The stillness amplifies the textures of nearby moss and stone. In minimalist landscaping, less is not lack, it is an intentional choice to let simplicity hold its own power. A single stepping stone lies in the center of a wide expanse of raked sand. The Ma philosophy teaches that negative space in garden layouts gives weight to what remains. The stone, alone, becomes monumental. Minimalist landscaping like this makes us feel both grounded and free, as if the air itself carries the garden's unspoken poetry. The breeze carries a faint scent of pine, but there is no tree in sight, only its shadow stretching across an open courtyard. This shadow is a form of negative space in garden design. Shaped by light, Ma philosophy reminds us that what we don't see can be as powerful as what we do. Minimalist landscaping listens to these invisible presences. Beside the path, there's nothing but bare earth for several feet, leading to a single clump of bamboo. The Ma philosophy is alive here. The emptiness frames the bamboo, allowing it to speak clearly. Negative space in garden design ensures that even the simplest plant becomes a focal point. Minimalist landscaping thrives in these moments of restraint. garden bench sits in an alcove, not surrounded by flowers, but by air and open ground. In the Ma philosophy, such negative space in garden seating areas invites you to sit longer, breathe deeper. Minimalist landscaping creates these sanctuaries of pause, where the absence of decoration becomes an embrace for the soul. A small koi pond rests at the far corner, but the space around it is deliberately unadorned. This negative space in garden design draws you to the water as if nothing else exists. The Ma philosophy teaches that stillness is not an absence, it's a gathering of quiet. Minimalist landscaping turns the unoccupied into the unforgettable. At dawn, mist lingers over an empty gravel court. The Ma philosophy thrives in such moments, where negative space in garden design blurs with the natural elements. Minimalist landscaping ensures nothing competes with the softness of light, letting the scene feel like a painting with just one brush stroke. Between two stone lanterns lies a broad stretch of nothing but smooth earth. The Ma philosophy ensures that this negative space in garden pots gives the lanterns more gravity. In minimalist landscaping, these intervals of openness feel like pauses in music, where silence makes the notes more powerful. On a hilltop, the garden is open to the horizon. No trees block the sky. No fences enclose the view. The Ma philosophy here is about extending negative space in garden layouts into the distance. Minimalist landscaping allows the outside world to be part of the design, borrowed space that belongs to everyone. A single bonsai stands in a wide, empty courtyard. Its small stature feels monumental because of the negative space and garden planning around it. My philosophy celebrates this contrast, making one thing important by letting everything else step back. Minimalist landscaping is a masterclass in the art of letting be. The path narrows, then opens into a flat, barren circle of sand. This deliberate break in design is negative space and garden flow. The Ma philosophy embraces such interruptions. As they reset your senses, minimalist landscaping uses these clearings as visual deep breaths before leading you onward. An empty stretch between the bridges becomes a space for reflection. The Ma philosophy teaches us that negative space in garden design is not just physical, it's mental. Minimalist landscaping uses these voids to help us gather our thoughts, like a pause before a meaningful word. A row of stepping stones crosses a vast plain of white gravel. The Ma philosophy treats the gravel as more than filler. It's a sea of negative space in garden storytelling. Minimalist landscaping sees every unplanted inch as a deliberate chapter, not a gap. Under the maple tree, fallen leaves are left where they land. The Ma philosophy allows this natural negative space in garden floors to exist without tidying. Minimalist landscaping accepts imperfection as part of the visual balance, where absence of order becomes its own beauty. A bamboo fence marks the edge of the property, but inside, there is only open grass. The Ma philosophy values this empty buffer as negative space and garden borders. Minimalist landscaping knows that a crowded edge feels heavy, while openness feels welcoming. A water basin sits alone in a courtyard, surrounded by empty stone. The Ma philosophy uses this negative space and garden features to amplify presence. Minimalist landscaping lets the water surface speak louder than any decoration could. A shaded corner holds no plants at all, only cool, bare earth. The Ma philosophy calls this negative space and garden corners a resting place for the eye. Minimalist landscaping lets you feel the weight of stillness, as if silence had texture. Along the garden wall, there is nothing but a single vertical stone. The Ma philosophy turns this into a statement by surrounding it with negative space and garden composition. Minimalist landscaping gives it dignity by giving it room to breathe. A moon gate frames a wide, open patch of sky. The Ma philosophy transforms this negative space and garden views into a living picture. Minimalist landscaping teaches us that sometimes the best art is leaving the frame empty. A tea house porch overlooks an empty sand garden. The moth philosophy thrives here, where negative space in garden courtyards clears the mind before tea. Minimalist landscaping creates these transitional spaces to shift you from busy to still. In winter, snow blankets the garden, erasing all but the essential forms. The moth philosophy sees this as nature's negative space and garden renewal. Minimalist landscaping celebrates the purity of this blankness, as if the garden were pausing to inhale. A single stone path cuts across an otherwise untouched slope. The moth philosophy uses this negative space in garden movement to slow the pace. Minimalist landscaping prefers the single line over the busy network, letting each step feel intentional. A distant mountain becomes the main feature, framed by empty lawn. The moth philosophy turns this borrowed view into negative space in garden sightlines. Minimalist landscaping knows that space isn't wasted when it serves as a window. An open courtyard between two structures contains nothing but wind. The moth philosophy embraces this negative space in garden architecture as a bridge between built and natural. Minimalist landscaping listens to what air has to say. solitary lantern rests on a platform of sand. The moth philosophy surrounds it with negative space in garden settings, so it glows even unlit. Minimalist landscaping removes distractions, so the single object holds the whole story. In spring, cherry blossoms fall on an empty pathway. The moth philosophy sees this negative space in garden flooring as a stage for nature's fleeting performance. Minimalist landscaping refrains from sweeping, knowing beauty often arrives unplanned. A still pond reflects an open sky. The moth philosophy considers the surface both a mirror and a form of negative space. In garden experience, minimalist landscaping would never clutter the water with too much planting. Reflection needs room. An open sand terrace faces the sunrise. The moth philosophy treasures this negative space in garden mornings as an invitation to watch the light change. Minimalist landscaping relies on openness to capture such daily rituals. An empty gravel path curves around a hidden corner. The moth philosophy calls this negative space in garden roots a journey of anticipation. Minimalist landscaping uses emptiness not just for peace, but for curiosity. Raked gravel circle surrounds a single maple. The Ma philosophy frames it with negative space and garden simplicity, so the maple feels eternal. Minimalist landscaping thrives on this pairing of fullness and emptiness. An old wooden gate opens to nothing. The Ma philosophy loves the surprise. Negative space in garden entryways forces you to slow. Minimalist landscaping trusts that the empty space will prepare your heart for what's next. In a Zen courtyard, only 3 stones sit in an ocean of sand. The Ma philosophy treats this negative space in garden settings as a meditative tool. Minimalist landscaping offers no excess, only essence. A bamboo water spout trickles into a bare basin. The Ma philosophy surrounds it with negative space and garden textures, so sound becomes the main feature. Minimalist landscaping focuses on sensory depth over visual clutter. A low wall separates a wide, bare field from the rest of the garden. The Ma philosophy calls this negative space in garden design a visual sigh. Minimalist landscaping respects these breaks as part of the rhythm. A pathway stops before an expanse of untouched gravel. The Ma philosophy sees this negative space in garden navigation as a moment to pause. Minimalist landscaping often ends journeys with openness, not a destination. A flat stone lies in the middle of an open court. The Ma philosophy treats it as an anchor in negative space in garden composition. Minimalist landscaping uses this single point to ground the whole view. An empty bench faces a bare wall. The Ma philosophy teaches that this negative space in garden seating encourages inward reflection. Minimalist landscaping offers not a view, but a mirror for the mind. In summer, sunlight pools in an open gravel square. The Ma philosophy cherishes this negative space in garden warmth. Knowing that light needs room to play, minimalist landscaping designs with sun as much as with stone. A moss island floats in a sea of bare earth. The Ma philosophy uses this negative space in garden islands to highlight fragility. Minimalist landscaping trusts that smallness shines brighter in emptiness. An arch bridge leads not to a building, but to open grass. The Ma philosophy frames this negative space in garden innings as an invitation to imagine. Minimalist landscaping loves a path that ends with possibility. A dry stream winds through bare gravel banks. The Ma philosophy celebrates this negative space in garden storytelling as a river without water. Minimalist landscaping turns absence into metaphor. A single lantern stands in a moonlit clearing. The Ma philosophy lets negative space and garden darkness surround it, so light feels sacred. Minimalist landscaping embraces contrasts like this to evoke emotion. A stone wall borders an empty courtyard. The Ma philosophy calls this negative space in garden framing a container for calm. Minimalist landscaping uses walls not to enclose, but to protect stillness. In autumn, leaves drift across an empty terrace. The Ma philosophy treats this negative space in garden seasonal change as a reminder of impermanence. Minimalist landscaping leaves the moment untouched. open strip of sand separates the garden sections. The Ma philosophy views this negative space in garden zoning as a boundary of peace. Minimalist landscaping prefers space over fences. A large, flat boulder sits in an otherwise empty lawn. The Ma philosophy surrounds it with negative space and garden minimalism to make it timeless. Minimalist landscaping turns isolation into presence. An empty expanse of water reflects the clouds. The Ma philosophy considers this negative space in garden design as a dialogue with the sky. Minimalist landscaping knows that water's voice is clearest without distraction. A narrow strip of gravel runs beside the path with nothing planted. The Ma philosophy calls this negative space in garden edges a silent margin. Minimalist landscaping leaves these gaps as breathing room. A courtyard of nothing but sand becomes a meditation hall. The Ma philosophy uses this negative space in garden spirituality to center the soul. Minimalist landscaping understands that emptiness can be the fullest space of all. A tea garden leaves a wide empty patch before the door. The Ma philosophy makes this negative space in garden entry a pause before ceremony. Minimalist landscaping values approach as much as arrival. A single pine leans over bare soil. The Ma philosophy frames it with negative space and garden viewing to amplify its character. Minimalist landscaping avoids companions for it, letting solitude speak. An open gap in a hedge frames a view of distant hills. The Ma philosophy treats this negative space in garden sightlines as a borrowed horizon. Minimalist landscaping uses absence as a picture frame. A garden rock rests in an otherwise empty bed. The Ma philosophy elevates it through negative space in garden layouts. Minimalist landscaping lets each stone be a world of its own. An open deck overlooks nothing but the sound of wind. The Ma philosophy embraces this negative space in garden listening as a sensory gift. Minimalist landscaping creates space for sound to exist. A strip of bare gravel runs along the bamboo grove. The Ma philosophy calls this negative space in garden planning a shadow zone. Minimalist landscaping leaves it untouched, respecting the bamboo's dominance. A still basin catches falling rain with no plants nearby. The Ma philosophy gives it negative space in garden surroundings so ripples are visible. Minimalist landscaping uses openness to highlight movement. A simple stone seat sits in a wide, empty plaza. The Ma philosophy values this negative space in garden seating as a solitary refuge. Minimalist landscaping doesn't fill the space because it already feels whole. The moon rises over a bare sand terrace. The Ma philosophy treats this negative space in garden moon viewing as a celestial stage. Minimalist landscaping understands that the greatest performances need the simplest settings. Thank you for walking with me through the quiet beauty of the Ma philosophy, where negative space in garden design becomes a living, breathing art form. Minimalist landscaping shows us that emptiness is never void. It's an invitation. If you found peace in this journey, please subscribe, like, and join me again for more serene explorations.